a few moments, and if the moment Good afternoon, councillors, members of the public, officers. Welcome along to this meeting, which I declare open. And in doing so, I acknowledge that Goombarup is Wadani Noongar Budja, and I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'm very pleased to acknowledge the presence of the Honourable James Hayward and his wife Lee. Welcome to both of you. Thank you very much, councillors, for your indulgence in us presenting the Honourable James Hayward with his certificate of service to the City of Bunbury over nearly 8 years. Under announcements, I'm very pleased and proud to announce that the City of Bunbury was a winner of the 221 Waste Initiative of the Year category for our FOGO bins program. So we've got a very lovely certificate and a very handsome trophy to go with that. And I was just asking the CEO if we should put this out to the depot, and he said he hasn't got any room in his office for it, so that's where it'll go. Aileen, so eventually congratulations to you. To Mr Harris, please convey our congratulations to the waste team, the educators, everybody involved in this award. Well done to all of you. Also, congrats to the Bunbury Districts Hockey Association. I don't know if any of you are hockey supporters, but over the weekend there was 140 teams, 1,400 plus hockey players, junior hockey players, plus coaches, parents, grandparents. Hay Park was just a hive of activity for 3 days. It was just amazing. I think all accommodation was fully booked in Bunbury, and it would have probably extended further south to Busselton. Cafes, restaurants, hopefully retailers, everybody would have done well out of that. And finally, under announcements, my fuel cost for the period was $69. Okay, we have an apology from Councillor Brown tonight, who is unwell. Declarations of interest. We have Councillor Kozasek's interest. Is there any further, or are there any further declarations of interest, councillors? Thank you. Can I have someone move confirmation of the previous ordinary council minutes, please? Councillor Giles, second to Councillor Plum, all in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. Minutes of the two advisory committees, the Events Advisory and Disability Access Committee, will combine those. Can I have someone move we note both those? Thank you, Councillor Kozasek. Seconder, Councillor Plum, all in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. Petitions, Councillor McCleary.
Mayor, we have over 700 signatures, and it states, we the undersigned, being the landowners and tenants of Victoria Heights, Glen Iris and surrounding areas, are opposed to the proposed development at Bunbury Farmers Market in respect to the restricted ventricular only via Jubilee Road, modifying condition 19 of the development approval 2012-2781 application reference, and there's a whole line. 3 major reasons we believe this should not proceed are as the following. Excessive noise from trucks and engine brakes. Congestion will become worse when entering or existing Victoria Heights. Quiet suburban roads will become dangerous for children playing outside, walkers, bike riders and other vehicles. Children in danger walking to school and bus, with 2 schools and 2 childcare centres within the suburb. Our property's valuation will decrease and our suburb will not be so sought after. Suburb has families, many retirees, shift workers who purchase property in Victoria Heights for an enjoyable, quiet lifestyle. This will be the first step in eventually opening Jubilee Road to cars and on long weekends, Easter and Christmas. So I'd like to submit these two.
And you're moving we accept the petition?
I move that we accept the petition.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Plum. All in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor. Method of dealing with tonight's agenda, councillors. Coming out for further consideration are items 10.3.3, 10.3.4, 10.3.5, 10.4.1. Are there any other items, councillors, that you wish to discuss in detail? Councillor Kozasek.
Also, sir, I would like 1031.
And Councillor Smith?
10.51, Mr Mayor.
Any others? Can I have someone move the balance, please? Councillor Plum, seconder. Councillor Yip, all in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We go to 1021. Can I have someone move the recommendation? Councillor McCleary, seconder.
Second, Councillor Mayor, but I believe it was 1031 that was coming up in discussion, or 1021?
1021. Councillor Steck requested 1021.
Oh, no, 1031.
1031. I beg your pardon. So, someone move the 1031 executive recommendation. Councillor McGill, seconder. Councillor Kozisek, Councillor McGill. Councillor Kozisek. Speaker against, Councillor Steck.
Thank you, sir. I just want to refer to page 9 of 22, and that is because there is an amount of money there for a detailed road design for Blair Street, Casuarina, Prinsett and Hayley. And I'm under the impression that that is going from 4 roads to 2 roads.
Is that a question?
Yes.
CEO, do you want to refer that question to Mr Harris?
If I can, please, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. No, there's no intention. Blair, we originally looked at reducing Blair from 4 lanes to 2 lanes, but with the initiative of the trackless tram still in play at the moment, this design doesn't look at reducing the lanes from 4 to 2.
Thank you. Speaker, is there a speaker against this? I'll put it all in favour. That's carried unanimously, thank you. So we go to 1033. Needs an absolute majority. Can I have someone move the recommendation? Councillor McCleary, second to Councillor Kozisek. All in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. 1034 also requires an absolute majority. Can I have someone move the recommendation, please? Councillor Kozisek, Councillor Giles, all in favour? It's carried unanimously, thank you. 1035, now I'm going to take these separately, councillors. So can I have someone move executive recommendation 1? Councillor Plum, seconder. Councillor McCleary, Councillor Plum.
Thank you, Mr Mayor and councillors. Obviously tonight there'll be likely to be some discussion around how much we put up or increase the rates this year. I believe, councillors, that 2.5% is the right amount to increase the rates.
Point of
tonight.
order, please, Mr Mayor.
Yes, Councillor McCleary.
We're not debating on what the rate increase is. We're debating on this report where we can have a 2.5% is going to be the baseline for the executives to put a proposed draft through.
Yeah, that's what Councillor Plum's addressing. Tonight's the night
Permission
to
to
give,
restate,
to give the officers direction to prepare a budget based on a certain rate increase, and at the moment the recommendation from the officers is 2.5, and that's what you've seconded. Councillor Plum, continue.
As I said, I believe that this annual budget should be prepared at 2.5%. I believe that's the right amount, councillors. I don't believe this is rubber stamping the executive's recommendation to us or proposal to us. This amount is informed by previous council decisions and the needs of the community. I believe that there may be an alternative amount proposed at 1.5%, so I suppose in many ways the debate tonight may be between that 1% in between. That increase amounts to a very small amount. For residentials, properties, that amount is somewhere around 35 cents a week, and for the commercial average that we're all supplied, it amounts to about $1.90 a week, councillors. In the last 12 months or more, we've seen a lot of stimulus from state and federal governments. It's gone into the economy in the form of cash or savings directly into ratepayers' pockets. And whilst local governments have received some support for capital or roads expenditure, we need a budget accordingly to support the maintenance or renewal of our community's assets, and that is precisely where this 1% comes into play. We have 1.5% in that amount, which is really just CPI, which is our inflation factor, which means if we put up the rates by 1.5% tonight, or plan to prepare a budget at 1.5%, we'll be breaking even. We'll not be planning for the future. That additional 1% helps us to renew and revitalise and maintain the community's assets that are already being used right now. I want to point you to two graphs which I alluded to last week in a question time, and the Executive did provide us with an answer regarding loan drawdown in this year's financial year, but this looks at the last 5 years for the loan liability for the city and the debt service cover ratio. Our loan liability over the last 5 years has dropped by 4.5 million, which is great, but our debt service cover ratio has not stabilised or increased, and this basically can only mean that after operational expenses, we do not have an increase or a matching trajectory of our operational surplus to maintain our buildings. We're paying off the debt we have, and then there is not that continual increase of surplus to be able to maintain our properties and assets adequately. And I've checked this with the Executive to make sure that I'm not assuming that, but that is correct from these graphs. And so that sits at our debt service cover ratio right now sits at 2.2, which is only marginally above the local government standard of 2. So with that surplus, this is not about just creating more income to put into the coffers to spend how we will. I believe the Executive have done a very good job of making sure that our budget is very tight, efficiencies have been made. And councillors, I guess just in closing my opening comments, I'll say this is yes, it is going to cost something to the community. This amount that we're asking is going to cost everyone a little bit, but my view is that if we don't have the courage to ask the community to commit just a little bit more, all of us, just a little bit more, then certain areas of the community are probably going to fall behind with the way we maintain. And that asset renewal standard has been dropping. I personally, example I would make would be our 3 football clubs. Those facilities, in my view, should have and hopefully will have much more money spent at them over the years, and get them right up to standard to something to be proud of for our community. So I would ask councillors to consider, however you've come here tonight, that you would consider supporting preparation of the budget at 2.5%. Thank you.
Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And I'd just like to read, I'm certainly supporting the 2.5. My argument is based on this little paragraph in the summary. The purpose of this report is for Council to establish the proposed increase in property rates and fees and charges for 2021-22 financial year. This will provide guidance to staff in preparing the budget, which is expected to be considered by Council on the 27th of July, and provide earlier public notice. So this is where I'm coming from. We do get a second bite of the cherry when on the 27th, if you don't agree. So I'm saying, councillors, we're not being asked to debate and set the base rate tonight. This recommendation put forward by the Executive is a report, a guide for the staff in preparing the 2021-22 budget. The draft budget will come to Council on the 27th of July for your consideration. Staff need a baseline to work from, and even though a very capable finance department says they will fit a budget to whatever percentage we choose, please be warned the saying any size fits all definitely does not apply to this or any budget. By using 2.5% as a starting point, we will be able to see what services and projects will continue as per previous years and what others have been reviewed and either postponed, reduced or moved forward a few years. It will also give us a definite view as to what other projects and services will have to be adjusted if we intend to go lower. Please keep in mind the financial implications with the long-term financial plan assumptions if Council choose to go lower than the recommended 2.5%, which you will be deciding when the draft budget is completed. Our stakeholders expect Council to deliver services and amenities for them and their families. In turn, they invest through their rates in order for this to occur. Our community's vision for Bunbury is vibrant city and progressive, a brighter Bunbury with a lifestyle that is the envy of most. Investors do not want to wait, do not want excuses as to why projects have to be delayed. Investors want progress. They want to see evidence of their money working for them and their families now. I believe that the conversations I have had with many people in our community, a 2.5% recommended rise is a reasonable starting point for setting the budget. I urge you to vote for the executive recommendation as written so they may get on with the preparing of the budget for 2021-22.
Thank you. I'll speak against, and I'll foreshadow that if this is not supported, that I foreshadow a 1.5% increase. Councillors, what Councillor Plum has said is absolutely correct in a normal circumstances. Normal, not COVID circumstances, normal circumstances. And I've spoken to a number of ratepayers as well, as obviously Councillor McCleary has, and there's a lot of nervousness around about how much the rate increase will be. And you can throw $1.90 a week or whatever number you want to throw out to make it look affordable. But just remember, we've come through a very, very challenging period, and in my view, it's just too soon to go back to normal circumstances. If we didn't have COVID last year, I'd be supporting 2.5% rate increase, but we did have it. We've got over 3,000 businesses roughly within the city of Bunbury. Some of those are home-based, some of those are multi-million-dollar national and international businesses. The rate increase of 2.5% would impact on all of those to a different degree. I'm also interested to read the comments of the head of Federal Treasury, a guy called Mr. Kennedy, last weekend in the Australian Financial Review, and also the Governor of the Reserve Bank of Australia, Philip Lowe. They both exercise caution, promoting caution within our community, within our economy, saying, look, with COVID, we're just not quite totally recovered yet. And you can see what happened in Melbourne, in Victoria and Melbourne particularly in this past fortnight. The impact on Melbourne and on Victoria is going to amount to some hundreds of millions, if not in the billions of dollars. I'm not saying that will happen here. I hope to goodness it doesn't. But let's proceed cautiously and not consider today or this year as being normal times. And I just urge councillors, defeat this, come back, and I'll come back if it's defeated with a 1.5% proposal. And whilst the final decision might be made at the end of July, if that number is changed, the whole budget would need to be reworked. Have to be reworked. So we won't be adopting a budget in July. It'll be probably August, if not early September. But that's not my main issue. My main issue is an increase of this size at this time is not appropriate. It's not affordable. The Speaker for, Councillor Giles.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Whilst I have some sympathy for your thoughts, I definitely agree with Councillor Plum and Councillor McCleary. We had a 0% rise last year, which put us behind the 8 ball to start with. We are behind the 8 ball all the way along here now because all the building costs, for example, the youth precinct, which we're currently discussing, everything has come back at much higher rate of cost. So how do we keep up with that? If we've got a 0% rise last year, 1.5% this year, we'll never keep up with that. So I think we have to think about the future. If we don't have a reasonable rise now and be able to put away 1% for our asset renewal, which is probably the most important part of the budget, then I think we're going to be leaving a legacy that we will not be proud of in the future. We want to progress. We don't want to stagnate. It's not good enough to say that's enough to just keep us going. We see places around us, people talk about other councils and how they're progressing. We want to progress too. And we don't have a growing rate base, such as other councils do. We rely on the businesses and people we already have in the city. We have increased assets, like our youth precinct, which is going ahead at the moment, like the work that's going out on at Hay Park. We have increased assets that we have to look after and maintain. And how are we going to do that if we don't have a reasonable rate rise? And I think our budget is actually a victim of this rising costs of COVID at the moment, because it's actually, we have to pay more for everything that we're doing at the moment, labour, for materials, for all our costs. So we're not the cause of those rises. We are a victim of those rises. And I think the only way that we can look our ratepayers in the face and saying we are doing the best for Bunbury and its future is to have this reasonable rate rise of 2.5%. Thank you.
Speaker against. Councillor Stick.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to say that water rates, electricity rates, that is, they've all gone up straight away. And there's many households doing it tough. And I meet lots of people every week who are really struggling to make ends meet. Not everyone is fortunate. So I concur with the Mayor, 1.5, and I think that it's not unusual for us to hold back on some projects. And if we find that we have extended costs, we can always defer a project to a later date.
Speaker 4. Councillor Yip.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. One aspect we haven't talked about is ability to pay. So some of the business owners I've spoken to have said that they expect a rate rise, they don't mind a rate rise, but they really struggle with the ability to pay that back. And they want to pay something and they want to pay it off eventually. Speaking with the Finance Department, there are many options to pay that back. I've seen the rate notice and there is a sign on it saying we have new ways to pay. So you can pay up front, you can pay by instalments, you can pay on a payment plan, which involves a conversation with the staff who are well trained in speaking to people in hardship. And we also are continuing the COVID policy where you do not have to pay interest on those repayments if you are experiencing hardship. I feel comfortable that we can give people the ability to pay with a rate pay increase. So I'm comfortable with that decision.
Speaker against. Councillor McGuill.
I'll speak against Mr Mayor and probably have fairly similar comments as I have the last few years with the rate rise, and notwithstanding the COVID argument that's been brought up just now, but it's for me it's more the fact that it's last year was good, obviously no rate rise, and we're able to develop it to bring forward a balanced budget, and we've actually ended up, as we just did in the last item, found some major efficiencies and ended the year with more of a surplus, well, potentially more of a surplus, but that money's gone towards the loan borrowing. So my major argument with the rate increase is that it seems to be every year. Going back previous to the year last year, inflation is 2% and rate rise is 3%. Prior to that, inflation is 2%, rate rise is 4%. Whatever the figures may be, we always seem to be compounding and asking our community to pay more. My argument's always been that, notwithstanding the staff have done a great job with the budget, but let's ask them, if you give them more leeway, they'll obviously spend it. If you look at your household budget or your business budgets, what I do for some people, of course you sit there and you put a figure on it, you get to the end of the year, and if you've got 20,000 that you're meant to spend on entertainment, I guess we call it, and they spent 10 grand, they're going to go spend 10 grand on entertainment in the last month. So that's just how things work. If you've got budget money there to do it, you're going to spend it. So what I'm asking is that 1.5%, it's to look at 1.5%, find a way we can find it. It's a working document. We have these reviews every 3 months, and if something comes along which needs to be spent on, obviously adjustments can there. We can't adjust the rate at the time, but if that means we have to look at loan borrowings, and I can guarantee 1% isn't going to be a difference between us building an ocean pool or nothing like that. It's going to be finding other efficiencies or finding other things that we can do. And if a massive project comes along that we need to invest in, we do that, and that'll come at a different time. So I'd be asking that 1.5% is at this stage, inflation looks like it's going to be around that mark, maybe a little bit less. And that's what I think our community should be paying around inflation rate. So that's my argument for it. City staff have done a fantastic job so far, but let's find more ways. Let's find more efficiencies to save money, and who knows what else may happen in there. If you've got to push it, more money comes available through grants or whatever it may be, and away we go. And one more further thing on the COVID thing, even though it's been very difficult for a number of businesses, it has also allowed a number of businesses to find efficiencies, as we found probably through our dealings, is that not getting into the operational side of things, but that there's certain ways you can do things now that are a lot better with technology. So I'll certainly be supporting that 1.5% and urging councillors to not support this one.
Speaker 4. Councillor Plum.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor, just in closing, there's been some comments just around the position, I guess, of the indication of where the community's at to be able to handle increase over the next 12 months. I just point out as well that there was that 500,000 that Councillor McGuell just pointed to, which was a surplus from this previous year we've just put to debt. So I understand that 500,000 came from an increase largely in fees and charges over the last little while, and as a result of conservative or consistent budgeting from previous years. So that just gives you an idea of just how much activity is happening in our economy locally, and this is a local issue. This is local rates. So I guess we're not looking at what's happening in other states or other cities. We're looking at what's happening here in Bunbury, and our ability as a city, as an organisation, to be able to provide and maintain the services that our community loves. And I think that's the biggest issue that we're debating here now. And I agree with Councillor McGuell that this is not 1% is not going to affect a large project, but it may just mean that executive are forced to choose between, or maintenance staff are forced to choose between not doing a project that's currently planned to do. Could be the plumbing or the renewal of reticulation or the upgrade of a roof or the paint of a facility. But these are facilities that our community use and love, and I think that we should be doing our best to keep those facilities and assets in our city to a high standard, and that really is the crux of this 1% that we're debating now. Councillors, I think that 2.5 is fair. I believe that 2.5 is a cautious step forward this year. The executive have not prepared a budget and said we would like X amount of money to be able to allocate on different things that they throw out. This is a cautious step. It's prepared based on the information that has come out of long-term planning, and it's consistent and it's long-term. And I think that is the best thing that we can do for our residents is give them something consistent. We don't want to give them 1% one year and 6% the next. We want to give a consistent and fair, cautious step year by year. So I think 2.5 is that amount, and I would encourage you to support that tonight.
Thank you. Those in favour, please indicate. Those against? That's carried. Against were Councillor Steck, McGuell, Turner and myself. The rest were 4. I'll now invite a mover for item 2. Perhaps we need an absolute majority for item 3, councillors, so can I invite a mover for items 2, 3 and 4? Councillor McCleary, seconded Councillor Giles. Any further debate? I'll put it all in favour. Those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. 10.4.1. This requires an absolute majority for point 4. I'm happy to have a recommendation moved, the recommendation moved for 1, 2, 3 and 4. Could someone move that way? Councillor McCleary, is there a seconder? Councillor Yip. Any debate? I'll put it all in favour. That's carried unanimously. (10.4.2). I think, was it Councillor Kozisek on that one? Yeah, not yet. I'll just get someone to move the executive recommendation, please. Councillor Yip, seconder. Councillor McCleary, Councillor Yip. Councillor McCleary. It's Speaker against, Councillor Kozisek.
Not speaking against, I actually would like to add a part 5 to that motion, if I may, Mr Mayor.
You're moving an amendment?
Yes, please.
Yep.
I would like to add to the motion that all Southwest Joint Design Panel all Joint Southwest Design Review Panel considerations relevant to the City of Bunbury shall be reported to councillors at the first ordinary council meeting following the outcome of the decision and prior to going to development approval or JDAP.
Have you got that written down so you can give to Liam?
I have, yes, sorry.
Can you just give it to Liam? Whilst you're doing that, can I just ask a question of Mr Barber?
No,
Is that the intent? Anyway?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Probably not the intent. It depends on the statutory timeframes for an application as to the value of reporting it back to council prior to a decision being made on an application or being referred to JDAP. Can't see any problem per se, but it wouldn't be able to hold up the process.
Yep, thank you.
can't read my writing. Yeah, yeah. No, we don't want to hold it up.
Someone prepared to second that? Councillor Steck. Councillor Kozisek, do you wish to speak to it?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And I'm just wondering, after hearing from Mr Barber, whether we should just add to the bottom of that in brackets, if it is possible, because we certainly wouldn't want to hold up a lot of developments. No?
Subject to legislative requirements.
Oh, that might be a better way to word it. Thank you.
So subject to legislative requirements. Thanks, Liam. Are you happy with that, Councillor Steck? Do you wish to continue to speak?
Thank you.
Go
Yes.
ahead.
This small addition to the motion will allow both the elected councillors and the community more time and indeed more information. One of the design principles talks about community, and I quote, "Good design responds to local community needs as well as the wider social context, providing environment that supports a diverse range of people and facilitates social interaction." Now, this is a quote from the design principles, the documentation that we received, and I agree with that totally. I believe that this amendment to the motion will indeed allow for greater community input and awareness, as we, the elected councillors, have some input into these decisions, and we are the conduit to the community. Obviously, anything that's confidential still remains confidential, but I think it gives us more information when something comes up and we have people constantly asking us what's happening. We have information available, so I urge you to support this small amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Steck, do you wish to speak? I'll put the amendment. All in favour, please indicate. Those against? One against, that's carried. So Councillor McCreary was against, the rest were for. That now becomes part of the substantive motion. Yes, Councillor.
I would have liked to have spoken because, as on JDAP, we only get a week before the agenda comes out, so how can it possibly work? Thank you.
Yeah, we've taken the vote and it's subject to legislative requirements. So is there a speaker against this recommendation as amended? I'll put it all in favour. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We move on to 10.5.1. I just need someone to move the recommendation. Are you moving the recommendation? Have a seat. Is someone prepared to move the recommendation? Councillor McGuill.
I'll get the ball rolling.
Yeah, thank you. Is there a seconder? Pro forma. Councillor McGuill. No. Do you wish to speak? Councillor McCleary? No. Councillor Smith. Speaker against?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've no way do I wish to hold up this process, but I'd like to move the amendment that we don't use the name Jackmin, and we go for Kookaburra, and if that's not available, either Corella or Elkhorn. Now, that's subject to, if we have time, perhaps to go and choose a suitable Indigenous name. If we've got time to do that, that's what I would prefer, but in lieu of that, I move that this Jackmin not be accepted and it either be Kookaburra or the other two that I've mentioned.
Yeah, you'll need to defeat this one first, Councillor Smith, and then you can move your alternative names. From a practical point of view, Mr CEO, perhaps you could give advice from the Geographic Names Committee. What influence do they have? How did this come about? Jackman?
Perhaps Mr Barber or Mr Harris might be able to mention that, and saw Councillor Plum have any questions.
Thank you, through Mr Mayor. The proponent, which is Department of Housing, that was the name that they suggested. So essentially, they were given a list of pre-approved names that we have. Jackman wasn't on that list, but that was their suggestion in regards to naming it. Any of those other names that are down there are pre-approved already with geographic names. So Council has the option of not necessarily going with what the proponent wishes, but choosing their own name.
Did you have a question, Councillor Plum? Thanks, Mr Harris.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just want to ask if this is, so I understand this is in partnership with obviously the amendments to the whole area. If we don't name it tonight, does that hold up any of the progress for those other applications?
CEO, I don't think so.
No, through Mr Mayor, it doesn't hold up any of the other processes at this stage.
Liam, can you pull up the attachment with the other names on that approved list?
We can send it all there.
So Kookaburra, councillors, if I can have your attention, please. Kookaburra is on there. Okay, that's good to know. Is there a speaker for the recommendation that has been moved by Councillor McGuell? Do you wish to close?
No, thank you.
Thank you. I'll put it, so we're putting now that council endorse the name Jackman Way. All those in favour, please indicate. Those against? That's lost. Councillor McGuell voted for, the rest were against. And Councillor Smith, you're moving that the name Kookaburra, which is on the list there?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
In lieu of being able to find a suitable Indigenous name.
Yeah, well, that's the list we have there.
Yes, that's the list, so out of those.
Okay, we'll go with that one.
Yep.
Is there a seconder for Kookaburra Way? I'll just get a seconder. Councillor Giles, you moving. Councillor Steck?
Thank you, sir. I was just wondering, isn't Kookaburra from South Africa? It's not really native to Australia?
Oh, it's on the list of approved names that Mr Harris referred to. Is there a speaker against this? Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would prefer either Goanna or
Point of order.
Abba.
Mr Mayor, did you get a seconder?
Yeah, Councillor Giles. Do you wish to speak to it? No, I think Councillor Smith, I thought you had spoken for it. Sorry, Councillor McCleary, I'll come back to you. I'm trying to get home. I thought you spoke eloquently. You want to speak about Kookaburra?
Yes, I
Go
do.
ahead.
The Kookaburra is generally native to the eastern states, although we do have some lovely kookaburras in the north of Western Australia as well that are native, so it is a native bird to Western Australia. I would prefer, as Councillor Smith, a Indigenous name, and I believe we may be talking about something along those lines sometime in the future, but in the absence of any of those, then I think Kookaburra is a good choice. Thank you.
Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Kookaburra is very pretty, but it's not relevant. And there are other names that we can choose from right now. There's another 4 or 5 names that I spotted there that I would like Council to consider, please, but not Kookaburra. Thank you.
Speaker 4.
Thank you.
Councillor
Speaking for.
Steele.
Thank you. Though I also agree there are other names, and I do like the thought that we actually do name Indigenous wordings from now on, and hopefully that motion will come up on next round for myself. But for now, I will be supporting Kookaburra. That could be Kingfisher too.
Speaker against. Councillor Smith, do you wish to close?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just think that out of that list, that's probably more appropriate. I did never like the combination of Jacaranda Crescent and Minninup Road. It didn't sound right, so I'm happy that Kookaburra is the one that we've gone for, so thank you.
Okay, all in favour, please indicate. Those against? 1 against, that's carried. So Councillor McCleary was against, the rest were for. We now move on to item 11, I believe. Can I have someone move 11.11? Councillor Smith, Councillor McCleary, all in favour? That's carried unanimously. And 11.12, can I have someone move that? Councillor Plum, Councillor McGwell, all in favour? That's carried, thank you. Can I have someone move we close the meeting to the public? Councillor Plum, Councillor Yip, all in favour? That's carried unanimously. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to deal with a confidential matter now. Thank you for your attendance.